2025, standing on the train tracks waiting for the train to come and collect everybody, and so that we can drive back to the train station. The Hijaz Railway, 1917, is a tourist attraction in Wadi Rum in Jordan that demonstrates a recreation of a battle between the Ottomans and the Arab nationals. 45 minutes of excitement here in the desert at Wadi Rum. When I first stood next to the rusty old tracks of the Hijaz Railway, I felt like I was standing on the bones of a dream that was sold, betrayed, and buried under the weight of an imperial ambition. This wasn't just a railway, it was once a symbol of unity, of vision, of empire. And yes, but also a kind of pan-Islamic connectivity that sought to bind the far reaches of the Ottoman world with the sacred heart of Islam, the Hijaz, Mecca and Medina. Built at the turn of the 20th century, the Hijaz Railway was more than a marvel of engineering. It was an artery of control for the Ottomans, yes, but also the faithful, the pilgrimage and commerce. It stretched from Damascus down to Medina with the intention that was never fulfilled of reaching all the way to Mecca. For Muslim pilgrims, this was revolutionary. What took 40 days by camel could now be done in 5. It represented progress, mobility, but also a tightening Ottoman grip over the Arab provinces, something that not all were thrilled about. But that was just the beginning of the story. Fast forward to the First World War, and the railway became something else entirely, a military asset, a lifeline for the Ottomans in the Arabian Peninsula. And for Arabs who dreamt of freedom, who were tired of imperial neglect and the Turkification of policies, it became a target. Enter the Great Arab Revolt. Sheriff Hussein of Mecca and his sons Faisal and Abdullah led a revolt against the Ottomans with the help, encouragement and gold of the British. The railway, ironically, became a tool of both oppression and liberation. T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, along with Arab fighters, made sabotage of the railway an art form. Blowing up bridges, rails, and locomotives to cripple the Ottoman supply line. And they did it all with the promise, the solemn word of the British that an independent Arab state would rise out of the ashes of Ottoman rule. That was the deal. The Arabs would fight and bleed, and in return the British would support their independence. But even as those promises were made, they were being undermined behind closed doors. The Sykes-Picot Agreement, kept secret from the Arab, divided the region into French and British spheres of influence. So while Faisal dreamed of Damascus and Hussein dreamed of a unified Arab kingdom, the British and French diplomats were carving up the Levant with a pencil and ruler. And then came the Balfour Declaration, 1917. While Arab fighters were still dismantling the Ottoman railway lines in the Hijaz, Britain issued a statement supporting the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, a land where overwhelmingly majority of the population at the time was Arab. Let that sink in. On one hand, the British promised the Arabs freedom and independence, and in the other, they promised the same land, Palestine, to a European Zionist movement. This contradiction, some would call it treachery, lit the fuse for over a century of conflict. The Jews of Europe, escaping pogroms and persecution, saw Palestine as the promised land. The Arabs who lived there saw it as their homeland. Two truths, one land. And the British, rather than solving the problem, deepened it with duplicity. In the decades that followed, Zionist militaries began to form. The Haganah, the so-called defence force, would eventually become the Israeli Defence Force. More radical offshoots, such as the Irgun and Lehi, also known as the Stern Gang, employed tactics of terror. Bombings, assassinations, and in 1946, the bombing of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, where the Irgun killed 91 people, British soldiers, Arabs and Jews alike. The aim was clear: drive the British out and secure Jewish statehood. Meanwhile, the Arabs, who had fought the Ottomans with British rifles, were left fragmented and betrayed. The arbitrary borders drawn up in Paris and London became the new fault lines. Iraq, awkward fusion of Sunni, Shia and Kurdish populations. Syria and Lebanon sliced and diced by the French. Palestine placed under a British mandate, caught between conflicting promises and growing unrest. The old Hijaz Railway lay in ruins, physically and metaphorically. It had been sabotaged by the very people it once sought to connect. What was once meant to unify became a symbol of division, of imperial manipulation and broken promises. Even today, you can feel the echoes, the region's borders drawn not by geography or culture, but by colonial convenience, and remain contested. Syria bleeds, Iraq trembles, Jordan strains under the weight of refugees, and Palestine, well, that has not come to a peaceful end yet. The Hijaz Railway was supposed to be a bridge to God, to commerce, to unity, but history made it a battlefield. And while its tracks may be rusted now and broken, the story they carry still runs through the veins of this region. If you want to understand the Middle East, start here with the Hijaz Railway and the Great Arab Revolt, the double cross of Sykes-Picot and the promise of Balfour. The rise of the Haganah, Lehi and Irgun, the echoes that came when empires drew borders with no regard for the people that lived within them. The tragedy isn't that the Hijaz Railway failed to reach Mecca. The tragedy is that it was never allowed to fulfill its promise to connect a people rather than divide them. This tourist attraction brings the Hijaz Railway back to life and prompts people to ask questions about the history of the Middle East. While free with the Jordan Pass, it costs 20 JD for people that have not booked through the Jordan Pass process. Come and live the Jordanian experience.